Hey everybody, Sam from Uncle Thursday Game Reviews, and today we're going to be talking about copyright, fair use, the Content ID system, and what all of these mean for your YouTube channel, whether it be a gaming channel or not. So what is copyright? Copyright is a limited monopoly granted by governments around the world that allows the creators of works, whether they be individuals or corporations, to allow them to get the ability to profit from their works, their creations, that sort of thing. They are granted certain rights that only they have, and basically they're allowed to control mostly what is going to happen with their works. So, what is fair use? Fair use is the ability for individuals, corporations, whatever, to use someone else's copyrighted work in their work and not be sued for copyright infringement. All right? There are varying degrees of what is considered fair use. However, none of them are really codified into law. There's nothing that says how much of something that you can use and still be considered fair use. And this is important because fair use is normally only decided upon in an actual court case where one party is suing another party over copyright infringement and the defendant is saying they're using it under fair use. But since each court can be different, basically what can happen, and you'll see it in a lot of these cases, is like the lowest court that they go to says it's either fair use or copyright infringement, and then the loser appeals to the next highest appeal court, and then that court overturns the ruling of the lower court, and then it can go even further. This is part of the problem where nothing is codified into law. There's nothing that says you can use X or Y amount of this copyrighted work and still be considered fair use. So it's going to be a little difficult to explain everything with fair use, and I'm not a lawyer, so I'm not trying to give legal advice, but I'm trying to give just general advice on what you can use as fair use or what you can try to claim as fair use, and most likely you will get away with it, and not get away with it, but you'll win on that defense. But again, since the actual fair use decision is made by courts of law, if it gets that far, you're going to be in court before that happens, and that's going to be expensive, just so you know. So don't expect to just be able to go fair use and win, because that's not always going to happen, especially when it comes to user-made content on YouTube or other video hosting sites. Oh my god, I'm losing my light. I'm going to start looking weird. But anyway. So the next thing we want to talk about, as we go through this intro, is Content ID. And what is Content ID? Well, Content ID is a system that was made by Google when they purchased YouTube, mainly to help protect themselves under the DMCA's Safe Harbor Clause, which states that the hosting site is not necessarily going to be liable when it comes to what its users upload. And this is something that they put into place, mostly part of which has to do with a big lawsuit that was filed against them by Viacom a bunch of years back. So the Content ID system is basically a database that is scoured by a bot, and that bot goes around and looks at all the videos that are on YouTube. And there's lots of videos on YouTube. And what it does is it's looking for things that are in its database that it can match up and then claim as potentially being owned by another entity, another party. And this hit pretty big recently with a lot of the network channels that went to affiliate status, and there's that whole big shitstorm that's been going on about that. But there are problems with the Content ID system. The idea behind it is not actually bad, because it's there. The idea behind it is to stop people from uploading full episodes of television shows, full movies, full music videos, songs, stuff like that, and just, putting them out there as their own, which is obviously against copyright law. But like I said, there are problems with the system. One of the major problems is that it cannot actually distinguish with what would be considered fair use and what is actual infringement. If someone decides to put into the Content ID system that it only takes 1 second of their copyrighted work to flag it, as far as the Content ID system goes, if you have 1 second of that Content ID claimed, or that piece of copyrighted work that's in the database, that's the same as fully uploading whatever the hell it was. Okay? And that's a problem. There are other flaws. In copyright law, it's the same as regular law. You are innocent until you are proven guilty. So the claimant, the plaintiff, who is claiming that someone else has infringed upon their copyright, they have to prove in a court of law that they were wronged and that someone is infringing on their copyright. However, the Content ID system is the exact opposite. It's a guilty until proven innocent method. Now, this sounds worse than it is, but we have to remember that Google is not acting upon itself as if it were, a legal thing. This is a privately run website. Blip.tv is privately run. It's owned by Maker Studios now. Vimeo is privately run. Dailymotion, all of those video hosting sites, they are privately run, and they are allowed to do whatever they want with their terms of service. So while being guilty until proven innocent kind of sucks, and I've had to go through it myself once, it's not the end of the world, and it can be fought. However, pardon me, the dispute process is actually a lot harder than it should be, and it's a little more convoluted than people would think. If you first get a Content ID claim and you wish to dispute it, then what you do is you hit the dispute button on your video that is Content ID'd, and it sends a message back to the bot that says, okay, this is under dispute. Part of the problem with this dispute system, though, is that many of the people that have their stuff in the Content ID system can set their dispute to auto-reject, okay, rather than have someone read the dispute. Because when you dispute, you actually put in a reason. There's a little text box, and you type in why you think it's okay, fair use, whatever. And someone can either read it, or the system can be set to just auto-reject it. And that's what happened to me with my Gods Among Us review a couple months back. Warner Brothers had claimed my review. They didn't want to take it down. They just wanted to administer it, which meant that they would have the ability to check its views, and if they wanted to, put ads on it. And I do not monetize my reviews, so I was like, no, and plus it's a review that's part of fair use, which, again, we'll get into later. But when I hit the dispute, I put in my reasoning, and then sent it off, and 5 minutes later, the claim was reinstated. And this was at 2 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday. So there was nobody at Warner Brothers to read that dispute. So they can just auto-reject disputes. And after the dispute, you go to the appeals, which they didn't used to have. It actually used to just be you dispute, and if they say no, then you're fucked. But now they have an appeal. However, the appeal system, when people look at it, they get really scared because you have to put in your real name, your address, your telephone number, basically everything that entity that is claiming that you are infringing upon their copyright would need to send you legal notice that they are now suing you for copyright violation. However, it also has a much larger form that explains what, if you're using a fair use defense, it goes through the 4 tenets of fair use, which again we'll get into in a few minutes, or whatever, however long this takes. I don't know how long it's going to take. And you can explain your case. Now, the nice thing is the appeals have to be read by a human being. They cannot be auto-rejected. However, they have up to 30 days to get back to you. So for 30 days, your video can still be under claim. And for those of you monetizing, that can be kind of bad. And for those monetizing anything like that is getting disputed or appealed, it's unclear where the money is going. many people assume that the money is just, the ad revenue is just automatically going to the person who or entity that claimed the copyright. But yet another entity that has been putting out disputes, apparently without the knowledge of the people it is putting out the disputes for, but that's a different story, has said that no, the ad revenue goes into like a limbo escrow type setting until it is completely resolved. So it's kind of unclear, and Google really needs to get around to clearing that up so that people understand, are they going to get their ad revenue back if they win, or are they screwed out of that ad revenue and the other entity, even if they lost, still gets it. It's also easy to create false claims in the system. This has been seen with some news organizations where they will take a video that they are using under fair use, by the way, and then they will use it in a news story. They will upload it to YouTube, but they will put that clip, that news story, in the ContentID system. And in some cases, they've even gotten the original video from YouTube, okay? But because now they are claiming they own the copyright to that audio and video, they can sometimes even claim the video that they originally got got it from, I guess, I'm kind of talking in a weird way, as theirs, which is kind of bullshit. It's pretty bullshit. There needs to be a much better vetting process when it comes to this. Unfortunately, Google and YouTube have not done this, and they really should. There are also people that have just gone around and downloaded, say, clips of other people's work, and then they were able to get that into the ContentID system, especially on popular videos that are being monetized, and claim it as their own and try to get that money and then get the fuck out before anyone gets wind of it. And there's also the issue of false positives. And what a false positive really is like, let's say you write your own song, you perform your own song in a video on YouTube, and suddenly your video gets hit with a ContentID claim that says this song or this video is being claimed by some music company, that they own the copyright on it. And it doesn't matter if your song doesn't even sound anything like it, okay? But there is the very real potential for false positives because it is a bot going around, and nothing is perfect. Of course, disputing that is the same thing you can do for any other thing, but again, it's kind of shitty. Now, like I said, the idea behind ContentID is not a bad idea. It is to stop people who just take other copyrighted work, upload it as their own, especially if they try to monetize it, and put it up there where it shouldn't be. Okay, you're breaking copyright law if you do that. But again, it cannot distinguish between what is actual fair use and what is not fair use. And this can be a major problem, and it's something that a lot of channels are starting to see a lot more of, especially if they are partnered with a network and have gone down to affiliate status, where the managed partners are still under the umbrella of the network that says, oh, no, we vouch for it. There's no ContentID thing here. And now all the affiliate partners are like, oh my God, I'm getting hit with everything. All right, so let's discuss fair use. We're all pretty much well aware of the very basics of copyright law in and of itself, that it grants the original creator or the owner of the work, if it's a corporate publication, whatever, mostly exclusive rights, I should say, that deal with making copies, distributing copies, how they go about, what they can do with it. However, fair use is actually a doctrine that was instituted into sections 107 to 118 of the copyright law. And what fair use basically allows is for other entities to use portions of a copyrighted work and not be sued for copyright infringement. And what many of the video game channels on YouTube are claiming is that all of their videos that use video game footage and sound and whatever will fall under fair use. However, not everyone really understands what fair use is. And again, I'm not a lawyer. And even lawyers, which I will link a video below, and I'm going to link everything that I'm talking about down below. But there is an excellent video that was posted a few years back that was, pardon me, made by lawyers for, for YouTube that helps describe what fair use is and what you can do with it when it comes to putting up videos on YouTube and worrying about Content ID or copyright strikes. And I do suggest that people watch it. It is fairly long, kind of like this video is probably going to be fairly long. But it's informative, and it is by lawyers. But even then, they will tell you they're not giving you legal advice. They're just giving you general guideline advice, which is pretty much what I'm doing here at the same time. So when it comes to fair use, when the courts have to decide on whether something that is being claimed as copyright infringement is actual fair use or actual copyright infringement, there are 4 tenets that must be looked at. The first tenet says the purpose and character of the use, including whether such use is of commercial nature or for nonprofit educational purposes. The purpose and character of the use can be subjective. Obviously, if you are just uploading anything that is copyrighted just to try to make some money off of it, that does not fall under fair use. If you are doing commentary, criticism, stuff like that, that falls more under fair use, which we'll get into in a second. But it also is stating that you are allowed to make money off of someone else's copyrighted work when you are using it that falls under fair use. A good example would be for those of you who are my age or around it, who remember when Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert had, they actually had 2 television shows. They started out on PBS and then they went to network television. But, they're film critics, and they had television shows where they made money by showing small clips of movies and then talking about the movie in general and giving their general thumbs up or thumbs down, which I believe they trademarked, so I might just have been in trademark violation. But whatever. They were allowed to do that under fair use. Great, fine, everything. And they were allowed to make money off of it under fair use. So don't assume that if you're not making money off of something, that it's automatically going to be fair use. That is not always going to be the case, and whether or not you're making money is not the deciding factor on whether something is going to be fair use or not. More light lost. I'm getting more shadows. I've been trying to get my lighting set up better, but I got to buy some lights and a better camera. Anyway, this next part is the nature of the copyrighted work. And pardon me. What that's going to basically say is that it is pardon me, god damn you. Fuck you, Mountain Dew. It's going to be far easier to claim fair use on a factual item than it is on a fictional item. And that is because factual items generally do not have a lot of creative input put into them, whereas fictional items do. Okay? So, if you make a fan fiction of, pardon me, something, I don't care what it is, a movie, book series, whatever, that is going to be harder, pardon me, to bring under fair use and say, hey, it's fair use. Because you're taking a fictional work and creating new ideas around it, or I don't know, there's plenty of sexual fantasy fan fiction stuff out there too, whatever. And that's going to fall more under what is considered a derivative work, which is protected by the copyright holders under copyright law. Whereas factual stuff, where, if someone just records something that actually happens and then it gets remixed in some way, that's going to be easier to bring under fair use. The third tenet is the amount and substantiability of the portion used in relation to the copyrighted work as a whole. Pardon me. For things like songs, movies, TV shows, this amounts to how much of the work that you use as compared to the entire work. For a 2-hour movie, maybe using a minute or two of different film clips or whatever altogether, a minute or two, that would probably fall under fair use under most courts. They're going to say it's not a substantial part of the movie or the song or of the movie. Yeah. TV shows, same thing. It's a hour-long TV show, and you use 30 seconds of it, and for whatever. You could possibly get away with fair use on that because, again, 30 seconds of a half hour or an hour is not a substantial part of the work. As with songs, they tend to be shorter, 3 to 5 minutes maybe. So what you end up using is going to be a lot more subjective. Okay, I know Angry Joe has this problem on one of his videos where he uses 16 seconds of a song, and they're claiming the whole video of a half-hour video of his Skyrim review. But he's also parodying the song and everything. So it's, it's a really muddy thing there. But the shorter the work, the less you're going to be able to use. And a general rule of thumb when it comes to fair use is the less that you can use and still get your point across or whatever that you're trying to portray with it, the better. The longer you go and it no longer is really, what's the word I'm looking for? It's no longer falling under the reason that you're using it. Now you're starting to get out of fair use territory and into actual copyright infringement. The last and potentially most important one is the effect of the use of the potential market for or value of the copyrighted work. Again, this goes to people just copying complete books and either selling them on their own or just giving them away. This goes towards people just taking entire TV shows and uploading them, or entire movies or entire albums and stuff like that. You are diminishing the potential market for that particular piece of copyrighted work. That is not fair use. If you are, using a small clip or portion of whatever, a book or a song, in a way that does not affect its potential market, then you're more covered under fair use. And this also falls under reviews, because even if a review is negative, not everyone agrees with every reviewer. And, there have been plenty of movies, we'll say, that have gotten horrible reviews, but they're blockbuster movies. People go out and see them in droves. So the potential market is not necessarily going to be affected by a review or a criticism. Now, more recently, a judge named Judge Pierre Laval, and I say more recently, it's like the late 70s, early 80s, he came up with a different tenet, basically, that other judges have used, but is not actually put into the actual fair use doctrine as of yet, and that is transformative use. However, this becomes very muddy, because what constitutes transformative? Is taking a picture of me and drawing fucking horns coming off the head, suddenly making it transformative? Maybe, maybe not. But the transformative defense is one of the things that many Let's Players are trying to bring about by saying that the way they play is different from the way anyone else plays, plus their commentary, their stuff like that over top of it, is transforming the nature of the work in such a way that it should fall under fair use. I don't know how good of a defense that would be legally. If a company was to try and sue a Let's Player for copyright infringement, and that the Let's Player then decided to try to use the fair use defense and the fact that they are using it under a transformative nature, I don't know how well that's going to hold up in court. As of now, there is no legal precedent that states that just playing a game in a way that, is obviously unique to you is going to bring about a transformative nature. Or, playing a game in a way that's unique to you plus whatever your unique sounds are while you're making it. I mean, I don't know, whether you're screaming at the top of your lungs or you are mumbling very badly or whatever, whether that constitutes transformative. Again, it's going to be very hard. And the transformative nature is something that, again, the courts look at in ways that are not always consistent. Now, if you take a clip of something and you put it into a top 10, all right, where you are saying this is your X of this or for whatever reason, that's probably more transformative than just playing a game and, running into a wall constantly and saying, oh, wow, this is fun. All right? Transformative is definitely, it's not something that is going to be easy to distinguish. And it's something that a lot of courts are probably going to look at and go, well, we got to think about this. So the transformative nature of the work in your defense or in anyone's defense is probably going to be the most subjective part of a fair use defense. And again, it's not actually part of the 4 tenets of fair use. It is something that has become a semi-legal precedent that other judges are following, but it is not necessarily going to win or lose a fair use defense. So let's look at some things that will often win fair use arguments that are going to pertain to this whole situation on YouTube right now. I am discounting anything for educational purposes because I'm truly doubtful that a lot of people that are dealing with this are teachers and trying to use it to educate people or part of an educational institution. Also, these people are probably not doing something for a trial or legislative purposes, so that's being discounted as well. So when it comes to, say, video reviews of a game, as we all know, all the major sites have gone to doing not only their written reviews, but video reviews. And on YouTube, it's pretty much all video reviews, whether they're by complete amateurs or professionals. This falls under the quotation of excerpts in a review or criticism for purposes of illustration or comment. All right? Obviously, you're allowed to use certain parts of game footage or TV footage or movie footage or even song sounds if you're commenting directly on that piece of copyrighted work. When it comes to reviews are very much covered by fair use, and they are also one of the things that are normally allowed to be monetized without any fear of that monetization in whatever form it is, whether you're writing for a website and that website makes money off of your writing, or whether you're on YouTube and you're just putting ads on your video reviews. Those are generally going to be allowed to be able to make money and still not fall under copyright infringement. Use and a parody of some of the content of the work parodied. One of the big things about this that, some people might not realize was the whole red versus blue. When they first started, it was very much parodying Halo. But, they loved Halo. They did it out of love. But it's a parody where all the Spartans are complete morons and everything else like that. And, it worked. Or maybe you were parodying a song. And so you have whatever your commentary on the song is, social or otherwise, that you're parodying with your new lyrics and whatever. You could even use the entire work for that, the entire music track for that, and still get away with it in a lot of cases. Parodies are very much covered under fair use. Parody and satire, even if they're not good parodies, okay? They don't have to be good. They just have to be a real parody. Summary of an address or article with brief quotations in a news report. There are some YouTube channels that tend to report on things, and they can use videos, sounds, whatever, in relation to that news reporting. Okay? That will fall under fair use. Most cases. Again, it's going to depend on what you're using, how you're using it, but as long as you're being a factual news reporting thing, you're actually reporting it as a news item, that's going to be more covered by fair use. Incidental and fortuitous reproduction in a news reel or broadcast or of a work located in the scene of an event being reported. This mostly is for news organizations where they're reporting live, or they're on a scene and something happens where a piece of copyrighted work somehow shows up in the audio or the video. Say someone drives by, or they're at a stoplight and they're blasting their music out of their car, and you can easily make out the song. They're covered under that. That's not in their control. They don't have any say over what happens there. Or they're reporting on a street, and you can see inside somebody's window pretty clearly, and you see their TV and it's showing something else. Again, that's not in their control. They can't do anything about that. This can also help protect certain people if you are, say, just walking on the street and you're making some video recording for yourself or whatever. And again, the same type of thing happens. Something appears in the background, either audio or video. Again, you don't have necessarily the control over that. So, as a result, you're going to be more covered under fair use. The Copyright Office does state that it is always best to get permission. And this is going to generally be true of pretty much everything when it comes to copyrighted works. But again, fair use is going to give you some latitude in what you're allowed to use, either for monetization or not, and what will be allowed. Okay. Unfortunately, again, with the whole ContentID system, it cannot distinguish between what would be considered by most courts to be fair use and what would be considered complete copyright infringement. And that's something that could be a problem that Google's going to have to address. So let's actually talk about some of the problems that some of these YouTubers are having when it comes to the ContentID system. In many cases, they're getting flagged by music companies in some way or another. Either that the game maker, the game publisher, has created their own score for the game, but they've licensed it out to someone else to be able to sell on YouTube, on iTunes or some other downloadable service, or as a music CD in general. And suddenly these entities that only have a license to sell it are claiming copyright. They don't actually own the copyright. They just have a license to be the ones to sell, the music. This is something that actually the publishers and the licensees are going to have to work out, because it's going to come down to we own the music, we're just giving you a license to sell it. Now, do we want you to be able to claim copyright notices on, or Content ID notices on YouTube or not? That's something that's going to have to be worked out there. Another issue that a lot of people are having, especially in stuff like, say, Grand Theft Auto or Saints Row 4 or any other game that uses licensed copyrighted music from the RIAA. And they're getting hit with copyright claims from the RIAA companies. This is very, very difficult to fight. And I will say this for this reason. In most cases, the license that these game companies have gotten from the music label is that they are allowed to sell the game with their music on it. However, that license is not transferable to things like Let's Plays or even game reviews, although you can kind of get away with it in reviews as being part of the game sound. And as a result, these music companies are going to say that no, that license for, that company may say, you know what, go make as many Let's Plays as you want, but you don't have the ability to use our music in it. That's ours, and we claim it. And, you can do your Let's Play, but you can't play our music in it. So that's going to be an issue that's going to have to be worked around with the licenses for future games, pretty much. As of right now, things like Let's Plays are probably not going anywhere. Things like playing a game on Twitch that has licensed music, probably not going anywhere. This is something that's going to be much more to be dealt with between the publishers of the music and the publishers of the game. And if that license is ever going to come about to the point where you won't have to worry about Content ID, at least claims on your Let's Play videos or whatever, that's up in the air. What else? There's some other third-party issues that are coming about. Mostly, again, it's music-related. As you notice, most of the problems are going to be music-related. Where, let's say that an individual composer who owns the rights to his music and either puts them out under a Creative Commons license that says, as long as you attribute the writing of the music to me, I'm fine with whatever you do. I don't even care if you make money off of it. Or that you are literally given an actual license from that composer. Some of the networks that they go through, it's hard to call them networks, but the publishing houses that they go through to be able to publish their music on downloadable services, stuff like that. Those services those publishing houses or whatever have partnered with other services that are now putting out the Content ID claims on behalf of the artist. Even if the artist says, I don't want them, I don't need them, I've given permission to these people, blah, blah, blah. And in some cases, the artist's own YouTube channels, where they post their own music, are being flagged. And then they have to contact their publishing house, and then their publishing house has to contact this whatever, End Music or whatever it's called, and get them whitelisted, or they have to literally tell every single person that they have ever given a license to email them, and then they will get them whitelisted, but that could take weeks. And this is another issue that, again, is involving licensing. You notice that a lot of these problems involve licenses, all right? Even the game makers, with what they allow with their videos, or with videos of their games, comes down to licenses. You have certain ones like Deep Silver, who was like, you know what, fuck it, do whatever you want. We love it. It's free publicity for us, and if you make a couple bucks off it, we love it. Great. Who cares? All right? And then you'll get people like, in my last video I mentioned, like Microsoft. They say, you know what, make as many Let's Plays as you want, but please don't monetize them because we don't want you making money off the content, but we don't care if you're showing off our game. Just don't make money. And then there's Sega and Nintendo, who are like, fuck you, derivative work, it's ours, go to hell. Which might really, in some ways, really show that these companies need new management, or maybe it's just a Japanese way of doing things, I don't know. But the licenses that are granted to Let's Players are going to have to be very, or anybody really, I mean, it doesn't have to be a Let's Play, are going to have to be spelled out very clearly on a website or whatever. And also, these publishers have to get this stuff to Google and YouTube to say, if we allow it, stop your Content ID system from flagging this stuff. We don't want it. And even with some of these problems, or even with some of these companies, literally getting a hold of Google and YouTube because they're one of the few people that can actually talk to a live human being at these places, it's taking a long time to get in there. There was actually a very big channel, WatchMojo.com's channel, who does a lot of stuff, and they do a lot of stuff under fair use. They do a lot of stuff where they're actually contracted by media companies to do stuff for them. And their entire channel was taken down for almost a full day. 21 hours it was gone. And this was after most of these companies that had dealt with WatchMojo.com had sent to YouTube, hey, stop doing this to this channel. We approve of everything they're doing. And suddenly their channel was gone for 21 hours. So they lost revenue, their viewage numbers dropped, everything. Again, going to be an issue. But it's all coming down to licensing. And again, I cannot stress enough that the licensing issues are going to be up to the game publishers, the music publishers, etc., to work together and then get on Google and YouTube and say, look, this is what's allowed, this is what's not. Maybe Microsoft can say, hey, look, if it's a Let's Play that is not being monetized, we don't want to see a Content ID show up on that ever. But if they're monetizing it, then we can put a Content ID and then we can decide later what we want to do with it. And it's such a tricky issue because we're talking about copyright laws that are far outdated. Okay, the original Copyright Act in the United States was like 1776, maybe 1778, somewhere around there. And that's 200 plus years old. Technology was nowhere near where it was back then. Nobody could have imagined in even 50 years ago that I would be making a video that I can put up on YouTube with my, it's an HD webcam, but it looks like crap right now, I'm assuming. Nobody could have imagined that. 20 years ago, you couldn't have imagined. Well, maybe 20 years ago. But, in the 80s, that was not imaginable. All right? But the copyright laws haven't really evolved with the advent of the internet, with the advent of streaming video, with the advent of anybody being able to publish anything they want on sites like YouTube or Vimeo or Blip. That's the sort of stuff that copyright law needs to look at because it's getting ready to come up for its next review anyway. And it's going to have to adapt. And if it doesn't adapt, then the only reason it's not adapting is because these major old media companies are so reliant on the way copyright law works now to make their money that they cannot deal with or adapt to the loss of control that they may potentially see. Will it happen? I don't know. I mean, I'm fully expecting when the Sonny Bono Copyright Act pretty much, I think it was 96, so in like 3 years, pretty much expires, and it was an extension act and everything else like that, that we're going to see companies like Disney and Warner Brothers and Universal and whoever else and all the record companies coming out and lobbying Congress to no end to just increase the amount of time copyright laws protect for. The main reason, obviously, that Disney is going to do this is because Steamboat Willie, the very first appearance of Mickey Mouse, will be entering the public domain otherwise. And at that point, Disney loses all control over Steamboat Willie, which they do not want to do. Okay? They want to be able to be the only ones to make money off it, to do it, whatever. But this brings up another interesting point. I've been noticing some complaints about I'm using a public domain song in my video and it's being claimed. The issue there is not that the song is in the public domain, okay? If you have a recording of Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, which has long since went into the public domain, the song itself, yes, is in the public domain. However, the recording that you are using is not necessarily in the public domain. The London Philharmonic Symphony Orchestra or whoever recorded that version of the song can claim copyright on their particular recording of the song. And that's an issue that some people are kind of going, they're like, oh my God, it's a public domain song. What are you doing? You can't claim copyright. They can claim it on their particular recording of it. Okay? Since it's Christmas Eve and I'm recording this. If you want to record your own version of Come All Ye Faithful. Oh, come all ye faithful, joyful and triumphant. That song. That song is, again, in the public domain. However, if you use somebody else's recording of it, that recording is not necessarily in the public domain. Your recording is your own copyright, and you can do whatever the hell you want with it. Somebody else's recording is going to be most likely still covered by copyright under the Sonny Bono Copyright Act. I'm kind of rambling right now, but I think you get the idea. Just because a song is in the public domain does not mean that the version you are using is necessarily going to be in the public domain, and you have to be very specific about which versions you use. Look for royalty-free versions. Look for versions where they have specifically stated, we have put this into the public domain right away, which you can do with copyright. If you want to, you can say, my piece of work, I claim no copyright, I put it into the public domain immediately. And, whatever. That's fine. And people can do that. Or you can put a Creative Commons license on it where you say, this is out there for anyone to use, share, whatever. And that can work. But when it comes to, using anything that is technically in the public domain, you have to look at what is the copyright on the specific recording that you are using, okay? It's going to be a little bit difficult for people to wrap their heads around. I understand that, where the song's not covered, but the recording is, and you're going to run into problems with that. So look for royalty-free music. You can search on Google for royalty-free music. Google itself has its own royalty-free music on YouTube, which is getting claimed by copyright or ContentID. Funny how that is. However, again, that's going to be the best bet if you want music in your videos, is to find royalty-free music and public domain music. But even the royalty-free stuff you have to watch out for, because maybe they sign a publishing agreement with somebody just, for whatever, to put it up on iTunes. And, they're going to say, no, people can use it. They can do whatever they want with it. But, if they want to pay $1 for it to get it, fine. But then the publishing house says, nope, that's covered by copyright, everything. It's fucking weird. Anyway, I think I'm just rambling now. I probably need to get some food or something. Oh my God, my eyes. But anyway, I'm going to have links to some of the things I've talked about in here, including the actual U.S. Copyright Office's description of fair use, which gives you all the tenets. It gives you pretty much anything that can be used as a defense. I'm going to link to that video by Lawyers for YouTube. There's going to be a link to something from Stanford University, as well as to help you decide on what you can use and hopefully get away with a fair use defense. Because again, just because you think it's fair use and you think it falls under the tenets and you think that you're doing everything right, that doesn't mean that a court of law is going to agree with you. Fair use is nebulous, it is ever-changing, and certain aspects of it need to be codified into written law in a way that makes it very hard for people to claim fair use when it's not, and to claim copyright infringement when it is definitely fair use. So I'm Sam. I'm hoping that my ugly face has not caused your eyes to bleed. My monotone voice has probably caused your ears to bleed, but you're deaf already. You can't even hear what I'm saying. So anyway, if you found this video helpful, please share it. I am putting it up under a Creative Commons license that allows you to just attribute it to me and share it with basically whoever you want, but not for commercial purposes. Please like, favorite, and subscribe, or +1 on Google+. I know all of you hate Google+ or whatever. And really, that's about it.